We will next move to Terry Bowman, speaking in favor.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of this committee. Good morning, citizens of the great state of Wisconsin, and especially my union brothers and sisters. It's an honor and a privilege to be with all of you today. My name is Terry Bowman. I'm a full dues-paying UAW member and have been for over 18 years. I am pro-union, but in the context of what unions were created to do, not what they have become. In 2010, I formed a group called Union Conservatives that is now a nonprofit organization and has grown to have members all around the country, including here in Wisconsin. In Michigan's right to work battle, I was the so-called public face for the issue. Governor Rick Snyder invited me to sit with him when he announced that right to work was on the table, because my voice as a current union member was systemically needed in order to counter the false claims being made by union officials about the issue of right to work. Why? Because I am a union member. I live it and I breathe it every day. You see, our union officials see us as their own personal ATMs, but we have many roles in our lives, only one of them being as a union member. We are husbands and fathers. We are wives and mothers, sons and daughters. We are members of our faiths. We are members of our communities. We are friends and neighbors. And we are members of all political parties. Unlike what union officials push on us, we are much more than just drone bees in a hive. We have hopes and dreams outside of our union's agenda, and we have aspirations for a better tomorrow for our children. We do not live for the union. It is one part of us. But for many workers, because of moral or religious objections, it is not a part we would like to be associated with. Now, since the passage of right to work in Michigan, I have been blessed to travel around the country speaking to all workers about the additional rights, freedoms, and protections that come with the passage of a right to work law. That's why I am here today to speak about Wisconsin workers and how individually they deserve your consideration on passing of a right to work law. But it's not just me. Listen to what Gary Castile, a senior executive and the current secretary-treasurer for the UAW, said in February 2014. Quote, "This is something I've never understood, that people think right to work hurts unions. To me, it helps them. You don't have to belong if you don't want to. So if I go to an organizing drive, I can tell these workers, if you don't like this arrangement, you don't have to belong," unquote. What he's talking about here is the freedom of association. And in no other realm of American society are people forced and compelled to join an outside third-party organization and pay them money, except in a unionized workplace. Any person simply wanting to be gainfully employed and provide for themselves and their family are forced to pay dues to a union, even when they have moral objections against that union. This is very un-American and against the very doctrines of what this country was founded upon, especially since unions today are so hyper-political and spend hundreds of millions of workers' dues on political issues that many in the workplace disagree with. Now, in my mind, we could stop the argument there, but let's continue. Most logical people would agree that competition makes any business or organization better, leaner, and stronger in the long run. Today, many union workers feel no benefit from their union membership because in a forced unionism state, the worker has no power and no recourse. Union officials can put their feet up on the desk and laugh all the way to the golf course or to wherever their dues-paid conference is taking them in Las Vegas or Orlando or whatever city it's taking place. Union officials have all the power because they have a monopoly over the worker and have no fear of the workers they claim to represent because they know those workers are required to financially support them whether they do a good job or a bad job. There is no incentive to excel at representation. But with right to work, it's a completely different story. It returns some of a worker's power back to them. Union officials realize that there are consequences to inaction, consequences to poor representation, consequences to poor management of worker funds, and consequences to the immense political spending that largely goes to one side of the political aisle. In other words, those union officials have to pull their feet off the desk, leave the golf course to their own personal time, start talking to and listening to workers. and stop spending workers' dues on a divisive political agenda. This, members of this committee, this to the citizens of the great state of Wisconsin, and especially my union brothers and sisters, is exactly why Right to Work is not anti-union, but is in fact pro-union worker. On January 17, 1962, President John F. Kennedy signed Executive Order 10988, which gave federal employees the right to form, join, and assist any union without fear of reprisal, and also this quote, or to refrain from any such activity. Yes, that's right. For 63 years now, federal employees have had the same rights, freedoms, and protections that you are considering granting to Wisconsin workers. Because you see, true solidarity can only be achieved in Wisconsin for their workers if they're giving the right, in the words of President Kennedy, to refrain from any such activity. Your passage of a worker freedom bill is a big step to allow healing in the workplace from the sickness of forced unionism, forced political contributions, and the denial of workplace freedom for Wisconsin union workers. So on behalf of Wisconsin's 306,000 union members who deserve those rights, freedoms, and protections, I thank the members of this committee, this assembly, the Senate, Governor Scott Walker, and all Wisconsin citizens, and urge the passage of a Right to Work bill, because forced solidarity is a contradiction. It is no solidarity at all. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Bowman. Questions from the committee? Representative Onstad.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Bowman, for making your way across Lake Michigan to come and see us today.
My pleasure.
And you had said earlier that you aren't, you didn't think that people in unions had any benefits of being in the union, but I would only assume that you're getting the wages and the benefits that are negotiated by your union leadership. But actually, the question I'm going to ask is that about your nonprofit organization. I was just wondering whether you would share with us the top 3 or 4 major contributors to your organization.
Well, the organization is a 501c4 organization, which gives our donors privacy. But I can tell you that I have no donations larger than $1,000. Nothing from any people that I'm sure you think are interested. Other organizations have tied me wrongly with other organizations, and it's just not true. I receive 98% of my donations, $25 or less, from individual union workers around the United States. I drove here. I had to take a vacation day. I drove here in my own vehicle to actually save my donors' money. So.
And just to follow up, Mr. Chair, and I might point out that vacation day was negotiated by the UAW. And I'd also like to
but other non-union
questions,
workers have
not comments,
days.
Mr. Representative.
I'd also like to question: are you saying that your organization has not received any donation of more than $1,000?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
And other workers also have vacation days outside of unions. So,
thank you very much. Further questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you very much for your testimony, Mr. Bowman. Next, we